Gary, moving to thing number two, we're talking about the dollar and gold. And the question is, can they both be strong at the same time, Gary? So the dollar and the gold speaking here. Thing number two, the dollar and gold defy traditional inverse trends. Tell us all how that might be the case, Gary.
So, Rob, first, let's give credit to Josh Reeves, new deep knowledge investing intern from the University of Tennessee. I thought he made a great observation, and he was the one who picked this particular piece. But really astute observation by Josh. The thing that he pointed out correctly is that the dollar and gold typically move inversely to each other. When the dollar is strong, gold tends to be weak. When the dollar is weak, the dollar price of gold goes up. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? If the dollar loses purchasing power, then the value of an ounce of gold would be higher in dollars. The value is the same, but you'd need more dollars to produce that value. So they typically have an inverse relationship. What we're seeing right now is gold at near record prices and the dollar also trading very high. Now, when we talk about the dollar being high or strong, again, we've talked about this before. We're talking about the US dollar index. The ticker is DXY, and it's frequently referred to as Dixie. So Dixie, or the dollar index, is a comparison of the US dollar against the fiat currencies of our biggest trading partners. So the euro from the EU, the British pound, the Japanese yen. So when we look at that, the dollar has been strong and gold has been up. And so that's the question that Josh pointed out. He said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. How do we have Dixie up and gold down? And gold up. So both of them are strong at the same time, and that was his observation.
Gary, you've noted in the past that it seems that there is a situation where both things can be true. What does this do for your thoughts about gold, especially as it relates to the positions that you have within the DKI portfolio, and how this changes any perception you have, if any, on the dollar or gold?
So, Rob, there are a couple of things going on here. Um, First of all, when we talk about two things being true, the dollar is strong if you're a foreign exchange trader. If you're buying euros or yen, the dollar has been very strong. If you're a US consumer and you want to do things like pay your rent, pay your mortgage, put gas in your car, buy groceries, we all know the inflation rate on groceries is not 1.5 or 2.5%. We're all paying a lot more for our groceries. In that situation, the dollar is weak. And so what's happening here is Congress is overspending and they're funding it with dollar creation and more debt. What that does is makes dollars less valuable. It's eroding our purchasing power. And so as consumers, the dollar is worth less and our prices are higher. Because of that, the price of gold in dollars has been higher. And so that makes sense. Now, what's happening in the foreign markets is the US Federal Reserve has been more hawkish than the central banks of other major countries, other major economies. Now, hawkish is just a fancy way of saying that means that the US Federal Reserve favors higher interest rates. The Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, the European Central Bank have been more dovish, just a fancy finance way of saying favoring lower interest rates. So when the US Federal Reserve has had higher interest rates, that has paid people more in other countries to own the dollar. And that's why the dollar has been stronger against other currencies. Now, the other thing that's happening is central banks, particularly in China and India, have been shoring up their gold reserves and they've been buying gold. So this is why we can see a weaker dollar as a consumer in the US, a higher dollar price of gold, and a stronger dollar versus the other fiat currencies. Basically, everyone, all of these currencies are losing ground. It's just other currencies like the euro and the pound and the yen are losing value. They're losing purchasing power faster than the dollar. So everyone's losing purchasing power. The other countries, other economies are losing purchasing power faster, and the price of gold is going up. And that's what Josh pointed out, and I think he's right.